Welcome back to my channel. I'm Traben, and in today's video we have to ask ourselves the question, Witch Hat Atelier, is it a great comic or the perfect comic? As part of my recent 24-hour challenge that I did last Sunday, I read through the remainder of what has been released stateside for Witch Hat Atelier, and I am going to be upfront. This is one of the best comics I've ever read. I'm not going to say it's my favorite because it's going to be very hard to dethrone One Piece, but this is something that I think everybody should at least take a look at and give a try if you are looking at what it is that is going on in the modern manga landscape. I have so many thoughts about this comic, and I don't even know where to start. So I guess I will start by saying that I think that there is a problem with modern day media that is labeled as adult. If you see something that's aimed at adults stateside, it usually means one of two things. Either there is a significant amount of over-the-top violence, or there's a significant amount of sexuality. And for the most part, I feel like Japanese media is pretty much the same. We had Kamen Rider Amazons, which was an Amazon original that was billed as like Kamen Rider for adults, and it's adult because it is incredibly violent and attempts to be deep but fails utterly. You had Garo, which is considered like the adult tokusatsu show, a special effects show. So think like Power Rangers, Kamen Rider, Ultraman. What always surprises me and what frustrates me is that generally we don't consider adult to mean just more complex issues, morally gray characters, topics that are going to appeal more to adults than to children. So for example, I recently did my gambling manga discussion, and a lot of those are aimed at adults. And they're adult largely because they deal with ideas of debt and gambling and the stress of, the stress of accumulating so much debt that you can't ever pay it off. And it's not that they're necessarily always violent or always over-sexualized. Many times they are just people sitting around talking in a room, but they're adult because the topics that they're discussing and the ideas they present are more complicated and nuanced than maybe the average child or teen would be interested in or really grasp. In Japan, these adult series are called seinen series, so you might be familiar with shonen or shoujo. Shonen is manga aimed at a boy audience, like young boys, and shoujo is aimed at young girls. And we get a lot of Shonen Jump over here. We get a lot of shoujo, think like Sailor Moon, and those are predominantly aimed at young girls. Seinen is the genre that is adult oriented. I say all this as a preamble because Witch Hat Atelier is a seinen series. It is a seinen series not because it's violent, not because it's over-sexualized. In fact, there's very little sexuality in this. There's very little violence in it. A lot of the conflict is actually nothing to do with combat, is nothing to do with direct confrontation. A lot of it is overcoming adversity, developing friendships, gaining new skills, trying to solve problems for people that aren't about violence, that aren't about who can attack better, whoever has the most like chi or their power level. It doesn't have anything to do with that. Witch Hat Atelier is the thing that I have wanted to see for so long in adult media, and that is more nuanced characters, more of a gray area when it comes to what is the right thing or the wrong thing to do, and not giving simple answers and having conflicts that are not about who can throw the bigger punch. I don't want to get into any particulars here, giving away like specific plot points, but some of the things that Witch Hat Atelier has dealt with are color blindness, being paraplegic, sexual assault, and victim blaming. They've dealt with LGBTQ plus characters in a way that was shockingly progressive for a Japanese title. So I say that as just a very broad statement. Japan tends to present homosexuality, particularly in like mainstream comics, as a joke. Think about like Sasuke and Naruto kissing, like what people call queer baiting in your mainstream media, and it's not there to be taken seriously. One of the two canonical couples within this series is a gay couple, and what is happening with them is as serious as a car accident. It is played straight, and it's very emotional. The amount of representation in here, just again, broad strokes, is incredible for a Japanese comic. I was watching a pop video, a J-pop video with my wife recently, and there is a band called Kamen Joshi that has a member that is in a wheelchair, and she performs in a wheelchair. And we were discussing how remarkable that is, because you do not see that. Idols have, and within Japan's idol culture, there is a certain perception of how people should be, and being wheelchair bound is not it. So the fact that they have this person performing in a wheelchair is remarkable and of note. Again, I say that because this is something that's included in the comic. There's so much representation in here, and I feel like it's really important. The messages that it's sending to its audience, the messages that it's presenting, the world it's presenting, is very bleak at times, but it is inclusive and is dealing with serious issues in a fantasy universe in a way that I think adults and even kids can understand and begin to relate to. It is my understanding that this comic gets a lot of, has a wide appeal in Japan, like across the board. It is designed for adults, again, because of the nuance of the messaging that's going on in here. It's not meant for kids. It's not made for kids, but I've heard that a lot of teens, young adults also read it, and it is gaining in popularity. I want to talk broadly about this nuanced world that we are presented with here. So we basically have two factions within the world. There are wizards who feel like there are certain laws that have to be obeyed and heeded to so that the world does not fall into chaos. So wizards are not allowed, for example, to study medicine, because anything that mixes magic and the body is very dangerous and creates some really horrific moments within the comic when we see people using magic directly on others. We have another faction that feels like magic should be whatever you want. You should be free to do whatever you want with magic. That we are limiting ourselves so much. There's so much more good we could do if we weren't constrained by these laws. And we are not given a clear answer on which side is objectively right. Ostensibly, we're on the side of order and regulations and restrictions, because that is where our primary cast is firmly planted. However, we are shown how zealous the magical police can be. There is absolutely no middle ground for them. There's no gray area when it comes to using magic in an incorrect way. If you are a bystander, these rogue wizards decide to do body magic on, like forcefully, it wasn't your choice, it doesn't matter, you're dead. They will kill you, because you can't combine magic that way. Regardless of the fact that that person didn't have any agency in what happened to them, they do not see a distinction. If you break the laws of magic, you get killed, or best case scenario, they wipe your memory and reintegrate you into society. They wipe your memory of all magic. We've also seen on the rogue wizard side how their magic is able to do very helpful, very useful things that the main group that we're following, it just isn't allowed to do. It's illustrated that we could do so much more to help people if these rules weren't in place. It's also illustrated how badly we can harm others if these rules aren't in place. And again, there's no clear answer to this question. There's no clear right or wrong. Quifrey, who's on this cover that I've been holding upside down the whole time. Whoa. Quifrey, who's on this cover, he is the mentor figure for the 4 girls that we're following throughout the story. Primarily, our protagonist is Coco, but he is the mentor figure, and he is still willing to break laws that he expounds to these children if it helps him bring down the rogue wizards. He has such a zealous mindset, such an anger toward this other group, that he will go against the very things that he's teaching in order to stop them. So a lot of this comic comes down to how far can you push the line while staying inside these rules? What will you break the rules in order to accomplish? And at the end of the day, what's the right thing to do? And again, we're not given a good answer to that question. Coco, one of the very first things she does when she learns that she can do magic is she does something to one of her loved ones that is possibly reversible, but she has to go and learn magic to figure out how to do it. And so at this point in the story, if Coco was willing to go against the rules and the laws that are supposedly there to protect her and to hold her back, then she could probably go and save the person that has been harmed by her magic. But at this point, she's not given into that. We do have a little bit of a Child of Destiny, hints at a Child of Destiny type storyline with Coco. The rogue wizards are talking about how she's like a prophesized Dark One, maybe. And so that element of it is not my favorite, but for the story that it's telling, for the messages it's providing, it's worth the read. 100%. The other thing that I will point out that I've said many, many times in my manga tournament as I was reading through the first few volumes of this comic is that this is easily the most beautiful comic that I've ever read. Like, across the board. Definitely most beautiful manga. And just the amount of time and detail and effort that goes into this with all the embellishments of the different panels. The fact that the characters have these like very complicated clothing designs. Everything's like very flowing robes. And so you have a lot of shots where a lot of care and detail has to go in with just like, what is this fabric going to look like as this person is like jumping into the air or doing this certain thing. The art has broken down a couple of times, ironically during some fight scenes. It's very good at portraying like single moments of awe and of just these amazing design choices. But when it comes to like action shots, it can sometimes be a little bit busy and hard to read through. So that was a little bit of a ding to it as I got further into the series. But again, so little of this is direct conflict, is direct like fighting back and forth. And so much more of it is character interactions, coming up with new spells to get us out of these trials and these different challenges that we are faced with, and just culminating in these beautiful moments where the girls figure out how to make a new spell that's just so beautiful and captivating and eye-opening. It's really remarkable the way that the story is able to progress without resorting to it's just characters fighting back and forth. Character development is amazing, and it's amazing because it is so gradual, especially between Agate and Coco. They start off at odds with one another. Agate resents Coco for her ignorance of magic and for Qwifree's attention that he's giving her, and it takes multiple volumes for them to gradually start seeing the way that their differences actually help bring out the best of each of them, how if they can work together, they can accomplish so much more and so much more beautiful things. Unsurprisingly, I'm going to give Witch Hat Atelier 5 out of 5. It is probably the second best thing I've ever read, if I'm being perfectly honest. And again, like, One Piece is it's going to have a hard time being dethroned, but just like, man, so much about this is amazing and worthy of attention and worthy of people reading it and getting these messages. Profound themes, very strong themes of important ideas of, you know, camaraderie, togetherness, unity, working together, amazing art, excellent characterization, and very gradual characterization. So much positive in this title that I feel like I could talk about it for a very long time and not really get to everything that I would want to discuss about it. So hopefully this video did enough to express my love for this series. I hope that your reading journey is going well. I hope you are finding something. I hope you are reading something that catches you in the way that Witch Hat has caught me, and I love it so much. As always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe so we can grow this corner of our BookTube community. Check out these videos of other things that I've been up to recently, and until the next time, take care.